My son texted me that my pension would go to his account. He'd give me $500 a month for expenses. My real pension? $12,000. That text is still on my phone. Screenshot saved, backed up, forwarded to my attorney. The timestamp reads 3:47 p.m. on a Wednesday in March, the day my only child tried to steal $138,000 a year from me. But here's what Ryan didn't know. I'd been watching him for 6 months. I'd heard every whisper, and I was already 3 steps ahead. 6 months earlier, Thanksgiving, I was standing at my kitchen sink, rinsing the good china, when I heard them in the hallway. Ryan and his wife Ashley, voices low, thinking I couldn't hear over the running water. It's just sitting there. Derek, she doesn't even invest it properly. That was Ashley. Cold as always. Her smile never reached her eyes, not once in 8 years of marriage. And then my son, my only son, the baby I'd nursed through colic, the boy I'd raised alone after his father walked out when he was 3, the man I'd worked double shifts for so he could finish college without loans. We need to do this carefully, he said. She trusts me. I turned off the faucet. My hands were shaking, dish soap dripping onto my good slacks. She trusts me, like it was a weakness to exploit. I stood there for maybe 30 seconds, water still beating on my fingers, heart pounding so hard I could feel it in my temples. Then I dried my hands, fixed my face, and walked back into my own dining room like nothing had happened. Would you have confronted them right there? Called them out in front of the whole family? Part of me wanted to. But I've been a nurse for 37 years. I've watched patients die. I've held hands through code blues. I've learned that panic kills. Strategy saves. So I smiled. I served pie. I kissed my grandchildren, Sophie and Ethan, goodnight. And I watched. Let me back up a little, give you the picture. I'm 72 years old, Patricia Mitchell, retired RN from St. Mary's Hospital here in Portland, Oregon. 37 years of 12-hour shifts, holiday doubles, and overtime that wrecked my back but paid the bills. My husband Robert died 5 years ago, heart attack in the garden, the tomatoes he loved so much wilting in the August heat while paramedics worked on him for 45 minutes. After Robert, I rebuilt. Slowly. A book club, yoga on Tuesdays, my garden, and my grandchildren, Sophie, 6 years old with her mother's dark hair, and Ethan, 4, all elbows and questions and sticky fingers. They were my joy. Still are. But their parents? That's a different story. Ryan married Ashley 8 years ago. She came from money or wanted everyone to think she did. Designer bags, a new SUV every 2 years, expensive taste and cold eyes. I tried to love her. I really did. But some people don't want to be loved. They want to be served. For years, things were fine. Normal. Birthday dinners, holiday visits, the occasional Sunday brunch where Ashley would check her phone every 3 minutes and Ryan would apologize for her with his eyes. Then Robert died. And things changed. Not right away. That's the thing about predators. They're patient. It started about 6 months before Thanksgiving. Ryan calling more often. Stopping by without Ashley, which was unusual. Asking questions that felt purposeful. Mom, are you managing okay? Financially, are you sure you don't need help with the bills? It can be confusing. Dad's pension? Is that coming in regularly? Are you having trouble with the paperwork? Each question landed soft, like a probe, testing my defenses, and Ashley started dropping hints. Comments about seniors getting scammed, articles she'd seen online about elderly people losing their life savings. You can never be too careful, Patricia. People your age are targets. People your age. I'm 72, not dead. I managed a hospital budget for 15 years. I've been doing my own taxes since Nixon was president, but they were planting seeds. Confusion, doubt, the narrative that poor old mom couldn't handle her own affairs. I noticed. I filed it away, and I kept smiling. Then came Thanksgiving. After what I heard in that hallway, everything shifted. The casual questions weren't casual anymore. The concerned visits weren't concerned. My son was planning something, and his wife was pushing him to do it. The visits picked up. 2, 3 times a week, always with questions about my finances. Did I have a will? Had I thought about power of attorney? What about a trust? Just in case something happens. Mom, we want to be prepared. We want to be prepared. Not you, Mom. We. 3 weeks after Thanksgiving, Ryan showed up alone. No Ashley, no grandkids. Just him, sitting at my kitchen table, the same table where I'd helped him with homework, where Robert and I had shared morning coffee for 40 years with a manila folder in his hands. Mom, I've been thinking, he slid the folder across the table, about your situation, my situation. I picked up the folder. Inside, power of attorney documents. Already filled out, his name on every line. I've done some research, he said. This way, if anything happens, if you get sick or, start having trouble, I can step in, handle things, make sure you're taken care of. I looked at the papers, then at my son. His jaw was tight. He wouldn't meet my eyes. And my pension? Well, that's the thing. He leaned back. Casual, rehearsed. It might be easier if it went directly to my account. I can manage it, pay your bills, give you an allowance. Say, $500 a month for spending money? That way you don't have to worry about anything. $500 a month. I spend $500 on groceries. Here's what Ryan didn't know. He'd never asked about the actual numbers. He assumed that I was scraping by on Social Security? That Robert's death had left me broke? My real income, $12,000 a month. Robert's life insurance, invested carefully over 5 years. My nurse's pension, his pension. Investments I'd made when he was alive and continued after he died, $144,000 a year. And Ryan thought he'd take $11,500 of it every month while handing me back pocket change. I looked at my son, the baby I'd walked the floors with at 3 a.m., the teenager I'd driven to soccer practice, the young man I'd watched graduate, get married, have children, and I saw a stranger. Let me think about it, I said. His relief was sickening. He'd expected resistance, gotten compliance. Mission accomplished, at least in his mind. Of course. Mom, take your time. He stood up, kissed my cheek. No pressure. Just think about it. It's what's best for everyone. Everyone. Meaning him. Meaning Ashley. He left the folder on the table, the power of attorney papers sitting there like a grenade with the pin half pulled. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat at that same kitchen table with a glass of wine, the folder open in front of me, running numbers in my head. $11,500 a month times 12, $138,000 a year times 5 years because, let's be realistic, that's probably what they were betting on. 5 years before I kicked the bucket and freed up whatever was left. 60万美元. That's what my son was trying to steal from me. His own mother. The woman who raised him alone, who worked doubles so he could have new sneakers, who skipped vacations so he could go to summer camp. 60万美元. By 3 a.m., my tears had dried. The wine was gone. And something had shifted inside me. I wasn't sad anymore. I was furious. But here's the thing about fury. Uncontrolled, it destroys you. Channeled, it becomes a weapon. I'm a nurse. I've seen death up close. I know how to stay calm when everything's falling apart. And I knew that if I confronted Ryan now, if I screamed and cried and threw him out of my house, he'd just regroup, come at me sideways. Get Ashley to call Adult Protective Services with some made-up story about dementia. They'd already been laying the groundwork, the concerned questions, the comments about confused elderly people. If I fought them openly, they'd use my anger as evidence of instability. No, I had to be smarter than that. I got up from the table, found my phone. Scrolled through contacts until I found my sister Barbara out in Sacramento. We talked maybe once a month. She had her own life, her own problems. But she was the only person I could trust. It was past 4 a.m. Eastern when I hit dial. She answered on the third ring, voice thick with sleep. "Maggie? What's wrong?" "Everything. Everything was wrong. I need your help," I said. "And you can't tell anyone. Not anyone." Silence on the line, then Barbara's voice, sharp now, awake. "What happened? What do you think? Was I right to stay quiet at Thanksgiving? Or should I have called them out right there? Comment below. Because looking back, I still wonder." I took a breath. Looked at the power of attorney papers still sitting on my kitchen table. Looked at the picture on my wall, Robert and me on our wedding day, 43 years ago. "It's Ryan," I said. "He's trying to steal everything." More silence. Then, "I'm coming. I'll be there Saturday." I hung up the phone. The house was quiet. The folder was still on the table. My son wanted a confused, helpless old woman who'd sign away her life. He had no idea who he was dealing with. And by the time he figured it out, it would be far too late. Barbara showed up Saturday morning with a suitcase and a look on her face that said she meant business. She'd driven through the night from Sacramento, 8 hours on I-5, stopping only for gas and coffee. When I opened the door, she grabbed me in a hug so tight I could barely breathe. "Okay," she said, stepping back, hands on my shoulders. "Tell me everything." So I did. We sat at my kitchen table, the same table where Ryan had slid that folder across to me, and I walked her through it all. The Thanksgiving whispers, the concerned questions, the power of attorney papers, the $500 offer. Barbara's face went through about 6 different expressions. Confusion, disbelief, then something cold and hard settled in her eyes. That son of a she stopped herself. "Sorry, Maggie, but your own son?" "I know. $500 a month? While he takes the rest? $11,500 a month. Times 12. Do the math." She did. Her jaw tightened. $138,000 a year. From his own mother. From his own mother. We sat there in silence for a minute. The coffee maker gurgled. Outside, a car drove past. Normal sounds on a normal Saturday morning, except nothing about this was normal anymore. Did I do something wrong? The words came out before I could stop them. Was I too lenient? Did I spoil him? Barbara reached across the table and grabbed my hand. "Patricia Ann Mitchell, you stop that right now. He's 43 years old. He's a grown man making grown man choices. Garbage choices. This is not on you." She was right. I knew she was right. But when your only child turns into a stranger, you can't help wondering where you went wrong. "So what's the plan?" Barbara asked. I'd been thinking about nothing else for 3 days. Documentation, attorney, protection, in that order. Barbara nodded. "Then let's get to work." That weekend, we turned my kitchen into a war room. Every document, I had bank statements, pension paperwork, Robert's life insurance papers, the power of attorney forms Ryan had left behind. We organized it all. Made copies of everything. The originals went into a safe deposit box at a Wells Fargo branch on the other side of town. One Ryan didn't know about. I opened a new checking account at that same Wells Fargo. Started the process to redirect my pension deposits. Took about a week to process, but once it went through, Ryan would have no idea where my money was going. Barbara watched me work with this look on her face. Pride, maybe, or surprise. "What?" I asked. "Nothing. Just you're handling this. I'm a nurse, Barb. I've handled worse." That was true. Code blues at 3 a.m. Families falling apart in the ICU waiting room. Doctors who couldn't make a decision to save their lives literally. Compared to that, my son's betrayal was just another crisis to manage. But it still hurt. God, it still hurt. Friday afternoon, I drove to the Best Buy on Highway 26. Walked in, found the electronics section, and picked up a voice recorder, small enough to fit in my cardigan pocket. Good battery life, easy to use, The kid behind the counter couldn't have been more than 20, rang me up with a smile. Recording lectures, he asked? Or like family history stuff? Memoirs, I said. I want to record my memoirs. That's awesome, he said. My grandma did that. We listened to them every Thanksgiving. I smiled and took my receipt. If he only knew. Monday morning, 9 a.m. sharp, I called Whitman and Associates. Found them online elder law specialists, good reviews, downtown Portland office. I need to speak with someone about elder financial abuse, I told the receptionist. By a family member. Those words tasted like ash in my mouth. But I said them. Wednesday, I walked into Rebecca Whitman's office. She was younger than I expected, maybe mid-40s. Dark hair pulled back, sharp eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. Her office was warm, not intimidating. Plants on the windowsill, family photos on the desk. I told her everything. Took almost 2 hours. When I got to the $500 offer, when I explained that Ryan thought he'd be managing $12,000 a month while giving me pocket change, Rebecca's expression changed. Her jaw tightened. Her pen stopped moving. Mrs. Mitchell, she said, what your son is attempting is textbook elder financial abuse. It's not just unethical. In Oregon, it's criminal. Criminal. The word hung in the air between us. Oregon is a one-party consent state, she continued. That means you can legally record any conversation you're part of without the other person's knowledge. I'd recommend you start doing that. I thought of the voice recorder in my purse, already ahead of her. What are my options? She laid them out. A comprehensive power of attorney naming Barbara as my representative, not Ryan. A living trust to protect my assets. A report to Adult Protective Services to create an official paper trail. A cease and desist letter if the pressure continued. This will destroy your relationship with your son, she said. Not a warning, just a fact. I looked at her. He destroyed it when he decided to steal from me. She nodded slowly. Then let's get to work. Papers signed, copies made, a plan in motion. Walking out of that office, I felt something I hadn't felt in weeks. Power. Control. I wasn't a confused old woman waiting to be victimized. I was a 72-year-old nurse with 37 years of experience, an attorney on retainer, and a voice recorder in my pocket. Game on. But Ryan and Ashley, they didn't know any of that yet, and they were getting impatient. The text started that same week. Ryan, trying to sound casual. Have you thought about what we discussed? Ashley, playing concerned. Just checking in. We worry about you being alone. I responded with cheerful deflection. Still thinking it over. Oh, I'm fine. Keeping busy with book club. Every response designed to buy time while I built my case. Then came Friday. I was in the kitchen making tea when I heard a car in the driveway. Looked out the window. Ryan's SUV. And both of them getting out, no kids. My hand went to my cardigan pocket. The recorder was there. I'd been carrying it everywhere for a week, just in case. I pressed record before I opened the door. Mom! Ryan's smile was too wide. We were in the neighborhood. Thought we'd stop by. In the neighborhood. They lived 45 minutes away. Come in, I said. I was just making tea. They settled at my kitchen table. Ashley looked around like she was already redecorating in her head. Ryan sat across from me, that same folder in his hands. The power of attorney papers. He'd brought them again. Mom, we've been thinking. He slid the folder across the table. Again, about your situation. My situation. The offer still stands. Let me manage things. Take the stress off your plate. He tapped the folder. $500 a month, plenty for groceries. Incidentals. I'll handle the rest. I looked at the folder. Then at my son. Then at Ashley, who was watching me with those cold eyes. I appreciate the concern, I said. But I've actually been doing some research of my own. Something flickered in Ryan's face. Caution, maybe. Or fear. Research? I consulted an attorney. The words landed like a bomb. Ashley's smile froze. Ryan went pale. An attorney? Ashley's voice was sharp now. Why would you need an attorney? Because what you're proposing, I kept my voice calm, steady, the way I used to talk to panicking family members in the ER, is called elder financial abuse. And if you proceed, it will be documented as such. Silence. Ryan opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. Mom, that's insane. We're trying to help you. Help me by taking $11,500 a month and giving me back $500? More silence. Ashley's mask was starting to slip. I could see the calculation behind her eyes. You don't understand, she said. The financial pressure we've been under Derek's commission has been down we need. She stopped, caught herself. But too late. You need my money, I finished for her. That's what this is about. Not my welfare, not my safety, my money. Ryan slammed his hand on the table. The salt shaker jumped. You're sitting on all this money while your own grandchildren. Don't you dare bring Sophie and Ethan into this. Half of that money was Dad's. His voice was rising now. Half should be mine. Your father's estate was settled years ago. You got what the will specified. This conversation is over. Ashley stood up. Her face was ugly, now all that practiced sweetness stripped away. We could contest the will. Prove you're mentally incompetent. People your age, they make mistakes, get confused. I smiled, and I saw it throw her. I'm a registered nurse with 37 years of experience. My finances are impeccable. My doctor will testify to my mental competence. Try it. She stared at me. I stared back, and I watched her realize, maybe for the first time, that she'd underestimated me. Mom. Ryan's voice was pleading now. Please, we're family. We were family, I said. Before you decided to steal from me. This is insane. Ashley grabbed her purse. We're done here. Come on, Ryan. She headed for the door. Ryan stood there for a moment, looking at me with something that might have been guilt, or might have been calculation. Hard to tell anymore. Think about what you're doing, Mom. Think about the grandkids. And then Ashley, from the doorway, delivered the threat she'd been saving. Say goodbye to your grandchildren. You'll never see Sophie and Ethan again. My heart cracked. But I kept my voice steady. If you use those children as weapons, I said, I'll document that too. Ashley's eyes widened. Then she grabbed Ryan's arm and pulled him toward the door. He went, didn't look back. The door slammed hard enough to rattle the picture frames. I stood there in my kitchen, alone. The recorder still running in my pocket. My hands were shaking, but I made myself count to 10 before I stopped the recording. Every word, every threat, every admission. Documented. I picked up my phone and called Rebecca Whitman. They just left, I said. I got everything on tape. A pause. Then, send me the recording. This helps us, Mrs. Mitchell. They're showing their true motivations on record. There's more. She threatened to take away my grandchildren. Said I'd never see them again. That's emotional coercion. We can use that. I hung up and stood at my kitchen window, watching the empty driveway. The sun was setting. The house was quiet. You know that feeling when someone shows you exactly who they are? When the mask comes off and you see the ugliness underneath? That's what happened in my kitchen. My own son. The baby I'd walked floors with. The child I'd sacrificed everything for. He'd sat at my table and tried to steal my life. And when I said no, his wife threatened to take my grandchildren. Part of me wanted to cry. Part of me wanted to scream. But mostly, I just felt cold, clear, focused. They thought they were dealing with a helpless old woman. They had no idea. That night, I emailed the recording to Rebecca. Then I sat in the dark with a glass of wine and thought about Sophie and Ethan. Their faces pressed against the car window the last time I saw them. Sophie's gap-toothed smile, Ethan's sticky fingers. Would Ashley really keep them from me? Could she? The threat was calculated. She knew exactly where to hit. The grandchildren were my weakness, and she was willing to use them as weapons. But here's what she didn't understand. I'd spent 37 years in emergency medicine. I'd watched families torn apart by tragedy, by illness, by death. I knew that sometimes protecting the people you love means making impossible choices. If I gave in now, if I signed those papers, handed over my finances, let them control my life, I wouldn't be protecting anyone. I'd be teaching them that blackmail works, that they could threaten and manipulate their way to whatever they wanted. And that wouldn't just hurt me. It would hurt Sophie and Ethan too, in the long run. Growing up, watching their parents exploit their grandmother, learning that family love is just another tool for manipulation? No. I had to fight this, for them as much as for myself. Monday morning, Rebecca called with news. The recording is solid, she said. Clear audio, multiple admissions about financial motives, documented threat regarding grandchildren. This is exactly what we need. What's next? I'm drafting a cease and desist letter, going out certified mail tomorrow. And I'm preparing a report for Adult Protective Services that creates an official government record of the abuse attempt. Adult Protective Services. The same agency I used to call when I suspected elder abuse in my patients. Now they'd be opening a file on my own son. One more thing, Rebecca said. I'd recommend changing your locks and consider a security system. I think desperate people do desperate things. Better safe than sorry. I thanked her and hung up. Then I called a locksmith. That Thursday, the cease and desist letter went out. Certified mail, signature required. I tracked it online, delivered Friday at 2:47 p.m., and then my phone started blowing up. 17 missed calls over the next 2 days. Ryan, Ashley, Ryan again. I didn't answer any of them. The texts were worse. This is insane. You're destroying our family. You need help, Mom. We're worried about your mental state. I responded once. Any further contact should go through my attorney. Then came the email. Long, rambling, desperate. Ryan claiming it was all a misunderstanding. They only wanted to help. The attorney must have misled me. I was being vindictive, selfish, mentally unstable. And then, at the end, Emma cried for you at bedtime. She keeps asking why Grandma doesn't love us anymore. I read that line 3 times, felt my heart crack a little more each time. But I forwarded the whole thing to Rebecca without comment. Keep everything, she said. We're building an airtight case. You know what nobody tells you about fighting back? It's exhausting. Not just emotionally, physically. I wasn't sleeping. My hand shook when I tried to garden. My book club friends noticed I'd lost weight. Carol, who'd known me for 15 years, pulled me aside after our Tuesday meeting. Patricia, honey, what's wrong? I almost told her. Almost broke down right there in the library parking lot. But I just smiled and said, family stuff. I'm handling it. She looked at me for a long moment. Then she nodded. You let me know if you need anything. That Friday, I drove out to Cannon Beach. 3 days alone with the ocean, trying to find some peace. I walked the shore at dawn, watched the waves roll in and out, tried not to think about Sophie's face, Ethan's voice. Barbara called every day. How are you holding up? Some days, I admitted, I think about just giving them something. A lump sum. Make it all go away. And then what? They come back for more next year? Next month? She was right, and I knew it. Giving in doesn't buy peace, Maggie. It just proves the blackmail works. I came home Sunday to 37 messages on my answering machine. 37. Most were Ryan. Same garbage. I'm overreacting. The attorney is manipulating me. I need to think about the family. But then there was Sophie's voice. Grandma? Daddy says you don't want to see us anymore. Her little voice cracking. Did I do something bad? I miss you. Please come back. I covered my mouth with my hand. The sob came up from somewhere deep. They were using my granddaughter as a weapon, a 6-year-old child, coached to call her grandmother and beg, to make me feel guilty, to break me down. What kind of parents do that? I saved the voicemail, forwarded it to Rebecca. Then I sat in my kitchen and cried until I couldn't cry anymore. But here's the thing about grief. It burns itself out. And what's left underneath? Anger. Cold, clean, clarifying anger. They'd crossed a line. Using Sophie like that, it wasn't just manipulation. It was child abuse. They were hurting their own daughter to get to me. And I was done playing defense. I picked up the phone and called Rebecca. I want to file the APS report, I said, and I want to look into a restraining order. Are you sure? Once we go down that road, I'm sure. Because here's what I'd realized. Standing in my kitchen with my granddaughter's weaponized voicemail still echoing in my ears, Ryan and Ashley weren't going to stop. The cease and desist hadn't scared them. The attorney hadn't scared them. They were desperate, and desperate people don't back down. They escalate, which meant I had to escalate too. And they had no idea what was coming. The APS report went in on Monday. Adult Protective Services. The same agency I used to call when I suspected elder abuse in my patients. Now they were opening a file on my own son. You ever have to do something that's absolutely right but feels absolutely wrong? That's where I was. Sitting at my kitchen table, coffee going cold, staring at my phone like it might explode. Rebecca called that afternoon. Report filed. Social worker assigned. They'll be in touch within the week. And the restraining order? Preparing the paperwork. We need a few more documented incidents of harassment. A few more. Like 17 missed calls and 37 voicemails weren't enough. But I trusted her. She knew what she was doing. Thursday morning, 10 a.m., the doorbell rang. A woman in her 40s, professional dress, badge on a lanyard. Patricia Gomez, Adult Protective Services. Mrs. Mitchell? I'm here about the report you filed. I let her in. Made coffee. Sat at my kitchen table. That table was seeing a lot of action lately, and answered her questions. Health? Fine. Recent checkup showed nothing wrong except slightly elevated blood pressure. Wonder why? Finances? I walked her through everything. Bank statements showing consistent income. Bills paid on time. Investments managed properly. The woman's eyebrows went up when she saw the numbers. You're clearly capable of managing your affairs, Mrs. Mitchell. That's what I keep telling them. Relationship with your son? That's where it got hard. I showed her the cease and desist letter, the text messages, the emails, and then I played her the recording. Ashley's voice, sharp and ugly. Say goodbye to your grandchildren. You'll never see Sophie and Ethan again. Patricia Gomez's face went tight. She made notes. And this voicemail? She'd seen Sophie's message in my documentation. I played that too. My granddaughter's little voice, confused and hurt, asking if she'd done something bad. They coached her to call me, a 6-year-old child, used as a weapon. Patricia Gomez closed her notebook. Mrs. Mitchell, based on what I've seen today, I'm classifying this as suspected financial exploitation with elements of emotional coercion. It's on record now. On record, official, government documented. What happens next? The report stays in the system. If your son attempts anything else, tries to access your accounts, files for guardianship, anything, this documentation will be flagged. It establishes a pattern. She stood up to leave, then paused at the door. For what it's worth, you're handling this exactly right. A lot of people in your position just give in. I'm not most people. She smiled. I can see that. After she left, I sat in my kitchen feeling something I hadn't felt in weeks. Validated. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't overreacting. A government agency had looked at the evidence and agreed. My son was trying to exploit me. But validation doesn't stop a desperate man. The harassment kicked up that same night. Ryan's number. I let it go to voicemail. Then again. And again. By midnight, I'd missed another 17 calls. The texts were worse. Mom, please, this is insane. You're destroying our family. The kids are devastated. We need to talk. Just talk. I responded once. Contact my attorney. Then came the email. Long, rambling, desperate. Pages of it. How I was being manipulated by my lawyer. How Barbara had always been jealous of our family. How the stress was affecting his marriage, his job, his children. And buried in the middle, Sophie cried again tonight. She keeps asking why Grandma hates her. I read that line and felt my chest crack open. But I didn't respond. I forwarded the whole thing to Rebecca. Keep everything, she said. We're building an airtight case. Building a case. Against my own son. The baby I'd nursed through fevers. The boy whose nightmares I'd soothed. The teenager I'd driven to soccer practice at 6 a.m. on freezing January mornings. How did we get here? I needed to get away. Just for a few days. Clear my head. Friday morning, I drove out to Cannon Beach. Rented a little cottage overlooking the ocean. Spent 3 days walking the shore, watching the waves, trying not to think about Sophie's face. Barbara called every night. How are you holding up? Some days I think about just giving them something, a lump sum, enough to shut them up. And then what happens next year when they need more? She was right. She was always right. Maggie, these people don't stop. You give them an inch, they take everything. I knew she was right, but knowing something and feeling it are two different things. Sunday afternoon, I drove home. The house felt empty, cold, too quiet, and there were 37 new messages on my answering machine. 37. Most were Ryan. The same garbage. I was confused. I was being manipulated. I needed to think about what I was doing to the family. But message 34 stopped me cold. Sophie's voice. Small. Scared. Grandma? Daddy says you don't want to see us anymore. Did I do something bad? I miss you so much. Please come back. Please. I stood there in my kitchen, hand pressed to my mouth, tears running down my face. They were using her. A 6-year-old child, coached to beg her grandmother to come back, to make me feel guilty, to break me down. What kind of parents do that to their own kid? Carol from book club stopped by Monday with a casserole. She took one look at my face and sat me down. Patricia. What's going on? So I told her. All of it. The pension scheme, the power of attorney, the threats, the voicemails. Carol's face went through about 6 expressions. Then she told me about her sister. Same thing. Her daughter, not her son, but same deal. Convinced her to sign over access to her accounts. Just to help manage things, Mom. Cleaned out $30,000 over 2 years. What happened? She was too ashamed to report it. Too proud. Died broke and bitter. Convinced she'd done something to deserve it. Carol grabbed my hand. Patricia, don't let that be you. Fight this. That night, a letter arrived. Handwritten. Ryan's handwriting. Mom, maybe I approached this wrong. Maybe we both did. Can we just talk? Not about money. Not about lawyers. Just talk. Father to son. Thursday, 2 p.m. The coffee shop on Main. Please. I showed it to Rebecca. Don't meet with him alone, she said. It's a setup. They're trying to get you somewhere without documentation. I'll bring Barbara. And the recorder, are you sure you want to do this? I looked at the letter, at Ryan's familiar handwriting. The same handwriting from birthday cards and thank you notes and the first grade letter he'd written me. Dear Mom, I love you. You are the best mom. I need to know, I said. If there's anything left of my son in there, Thursday, 2 p.m., coffee corner on Main Street. I dressed carefully, blazer, slacks, Robert's pearls around my neck like armor, Barbara beside me. Recorder in my pocket. Ryan was already there when we arrived. No, Ashley. That was something, at least. He looked tired. Older. Dark circles under his eyes. Mom. He stood up. Thank you for coming. I sat across from him. Barbara next to me. Neither of us touched the coffee he'd ordered. You wanted to talk? I said. Talk. I owe you an apology. He looked down at his hands. I see how it looked. The POA, the money talk. I get why you were scared. I wasn't scared. I was angry. That's fair. He nodded. That's fair. Things have been hard, Mom. The market's terrible. Jessica's been under so much stress. Jessica threatened to take away my grandchildren. I know. That was wrong. I've talked to her about it. Have you? We're in counseling. Working on things. I'm trying to be better. I looked at my son. Looked for something regret, maybe. Shame. Anything real. What changed? I asked. A week ago, you were sending me emails calling me mentally unstable. I was angry. I said things I didn't mean. And the power of attorney? The attempt to take control of my finances? He shifted in his seat. I thought I was helping. I see now that I wasn't. Barbara spoke up. And the attempts to access her accounts, the harassment, the coached voicemails from a 6-year-old, Ryan's jaw tightened. That's not it. Wasn't like that. Really? Because it looked exactly like that. Silence. Ryan's fingers drummed on the table. What do you want from me? He finally asked. I'm apologizing. I'm trying to make this right. Making it right means accepting consequences, I said. The legal protections stay in place. Barbara stays my power of attorney. And you respect my boundaries. So I'm just supposed to accept that you don't trust me? You gave me every reason not to trust you. His face changed. The mask slipped. I saw the anger underneath, the same anger from my kitchen, the same entitlement, the same calculation. After everything I've done for you, everything you've done? I kept my voice level, but something cold was building in my chest. Ryan, I raised you. Alone. I worked double shifts so you could have new shoes. I skipped vacations so you could go to summer camp. I sacrificed my 20s, my 30s, my 40s for you, not the other way around. I visited you. I brought the grandkids. You visited twice a month. And then you tried to steal $138,000 a year from me. He stood up, chair scraping, coffee splashing. This was a mistake. You just want to punish me. I want you to take responsibility. For what? For wanting to help my mother? For trying to rob me? Say it, Ryan. Just once. Admit what you were really doing. He stared at me. I stared back. We're done here. He grabbed his jacket. You want to die alone? That's your choice. He walked out. Didn't look back. Barbara reached over and squeezed my hand. He's not sorry. He's sorry he got caught. I knew she was right. I'd known before I walked in, but I'd needed to see it for myself. There was nothing left of my son in there. Just Ashley's puppet, wearing his face. 3 days of silence. I let myself hope, just a little, that maybe it was over. Then Sunday happened. I was in the kitchen making lunch when the doorbell rang. Looked out the window. Ryan's SUV in the driveway. And both of them getting out. Ryan, Ashley, and in the back seat, Sophie and Ethan's faces pressed against the glass. They brought the children. My heart clenched. Those kids. Those beautiful, innocent kids. I unlatched the security chain against every instinct screaming at me not to. Opened the door. Sophie launched herself at my legs. Grandma. She smelled like baby shampoo. Ethan grabbed my other leg. Grandma, I missed you. I missed you too, sweetheart. My voice cracked. Ashley's smile was practiced. Perfect. We're here to really apologize. Can we come in? I stepped aside. What else could I do? The kids ran to the backyard. I heard Sophie's laugh through the window. And then I was alone in my kitchen with Ryan and Ashley. Ashley settled on my couch like she owned the place. Ryan stood by the window, watching the kids. This feud is tearing everyone apart, Ashley said. We need to find a way forward. The attorneys can help with that. Not attorneys. She waved her hand. Family. Like adults. You threatened to take away my grandchildren. I was stressed. I said things I didn't mean. She smiled. practiced. Cold. What I meant was, we need help, Patricia. Real help. Help. We're drowning. Ryan turned from the window. The real estate market is terrible. Ashley had to quit her job because daycare costs more than she was making. We're behind on everything. Behind on what? They looked at each other. Something passed between them. The mortgage, Ashley said. We're 3 months behind. If we don't come up with $15,000, the bank forecloses. $15,000. So that was the number. And you came to me. Who else would we go to? You're sitting on, Ashley caught herself. But not fast enough. On what? On Robert's insurance? On the pension I earned over 37 years? On money you're not even using. Ashley's voice had an edge now. The mask was slipping. Derek watched you struggle his whole childhood. Working doubles. Never home. And now you're sitting on hundreds of thousands of dollars, and you won't help your own grandchildren have a roof over their heads? Don't use those kids to manipulate me. I'm not manipulating. I'm stating facts. You owe us. There it was. The truth underneath everything. You owe us. Like raising my son alone made me indebted to him forever. Like working myself to the bone entitled him to the results. I owe you nothing, I said. Ryan slammed his hand on the counter. Dad would be ashamed of you. Everything went quiet. Don't you dare. My voice was shaking. Don't you dare use your father to manipulate me. Robert would be ashamed of you, of what you've become, of what you're trying to do to your own mother. Ashley stood up, grabbed her purse. This was a waste of time. Get the kids. We're leaving. Where's this concern when we're about to lose our house? Ryan's voice cracked, desperate now. 3 months behind. $15,000. That's what stands between us and the street. Then get a second job. Do what every other struggling family does. Don't steal from your mother. They left. Grabbed Sophie and Ethan from the backyard. My granddaughter's face, confused, scared. When can we come back, Grandma? Soon, sweetheart. The lie tasted like ash. They drove away. Sophie and Ethan waving from the back seat. I leaned against my closed front door and let the tears come. They'd shown exactly who they were. Using those kids as human shields. Demanding money they had no right to. Playing victim while trying to steal from me. I called Rebecca. They're desperate, she said. Desperate people do desperate things. Change your locks. Get a security system. Cameras on all doors. Locks changed Monday. Security system installed Wednesday. Cameras covering the front and back doors. Motion alerts to my phone. 1 week later, I was in the garden. Deadheading roses. Trying to find some peace. The security chime went off. Camera alert. Front door. I looked at my phone. Ryan's car. Ashley getting out. And a third person, a man in a button-down shirt, carrying a clipboard. I didn't recognize him. I stayed in the backyard, watching through the app as they rang my doorbell. Again. Then Ryan's voice, loud enough for the camera to pick up. Mom, please open up. We just want to talk. I walked around the side of the house, stopped at the front gate. Can I help you? The man with the clipboard stepped forward. Professional smile. Mrs. Mitchell? I'm Dr. Richard Hensley, a psychologist. Your son asked me to stop by. My blood went cold. He's concerned about your mental state, Dr. Hensley continued. Some of the decisions you've been making recently. My son is trying to steal $138,000 a year from me, I said. And now he's brought you here to have me declared incompetent. The psychologist blinked, looked at Ryan. Mom, that's not. I don't consent to any evaluation. I'm asking all of you to leave my property. Now, Ashley stepped forward. The paranoia, the accusations, these are signs, Patricia. Classic signs of cognitive decline. I smiled. Watched it throw her. I am not experiencing cognitive decline, I said. I am experiencing my son attempting to defraud me. There's a difference. I pulled out my phone, dialed 911, held it up to the window so they could all see. 911? What's your emergency? I have 3 people on my property who are refusing to leave. I've asked them multiple times. Ryan's face went pale. Mom, don't. My address is 4527 Cedar Lane. Please send an officer. Dr. Hensley stepped back. Perhaps we should reschedule this conversation. There's nothing to reschedule. Get off my property. Ashley grabbed Ryan's arm. Let's go. This is pointless. They fled. All 3 of them. Practically running to the car. I watched them drive away. Then I gave my statement to Officer Martinez when he arrived 20 minutes later. Showed him the security footage. Smart getting cameras, he said. Your son's going to keep pushing. After he left, I called Rebecca, then Barbara. Then I sat at my kitchen table and shook. They tried to have me declared incompetent, to take away my autonomy, my rights, everything. The anger came later, clean, clarifying. I'd been playing defense for months, waiting, reacting, letting them set the pace. No more. I picked up the phone and called Rebecca. I want the restraining order filed tomorrow, I said. And I want to report this to the district attorney. All of it. The fraud attempt, the harassment, everything. Patricia, once we go down this road, I know. No going back. I looked at the security footage still playing on my phone. Ryan's face, Ashley's ugly smile, that psychologist with his clipboard. They tried to take everything from me. My money, my freedom, my sanity. My voice was steady now. Cold. Time to show them what that costs. Because here's what they didn't understand. I'd spent 37 years in emergency medicine. I'd seen every kind of crisis, every kind of desperation, and I'd learned something important. When someone's coming for you, the worst thing you can do is wait. The restraining order hearing was set for 2 weeks out. Ryan and Ashley had no idea what was coming. The restraining order hearing was set for a Tuesday at 9 a.m. 2 weeks of waiting, 2 weeks of barely sleeping, 2 weeks of checking my security cameras every time the motion alert went off. You know what's funny? After everything, the threats, the manipulation, the psychologist showing up at my door, I still had moments where I wondered if I was doing the right thing, taking my own son to court, making this public, permanent. But then I'd remember Sophie's voice on that voicemail. The coached desperation. The way they'd used a 6-year-old as a weapon. And the doubt would disappear. Rebecca spent those 2 weeks preparing. We went through everything. The recordings, the emails, the texts, the APS report, the police report from the psychologist incident. She organized it into a timeline. A story of escalation. A pattern of abuse. The judge needs to see this isn't a family disagreement, she said. This is systematic exploitation of a vulnerable adult. I'm not vulnerable. You're 72. In the eyes of the law, that's a protected class, and we're going to use that. The morning of the hearing, I put on my best blazer, navy blue, Robert's pearls around my neck. Barbara drove me downtown to the Multnomah County Courthouse, that big stone building on 4th Avenue that I'd walked past 100 times but never been inside. Small courtroom, wood paneling, American flag in the corner. Judge Patricia Okafor presiding, a black woman in her 50s with sharp eyes and no patience for nonsense. I liked her immediately. Ryan and Ashley were already there. They'd hired an attorney, some guy in an expensive suit who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. Ryan wouldn't meet my eyes. Ashley stared straight ahead like I didn't exist. Barbara squeezed my hand. You've got this. I wished I believed her. Rebecca presented our case first. Methodical. Devastating. She walked through everything. The Thanksgiving eavesdrop, the power of attorney attempt, the $500 versus $12,000 revelation, the recorded kitchen confrontation, the weaponized voicemails, the Sunday ambush with the kids, the psychologist at my door. And then she played the recording. Ashley's voice, loud and clear in that quiet courtroom. Say goodbye to your grandchildren. You'll never see Sophie and Ethan again. I watched the judge's face. watched it go from neutral to something cold and hard. Ryan's attorney stood up, tried to do damage control. Your Honor, this is a family misunderstanding blown out of proportion. My client only wanted to help his elderly mother manage her affairs. There was never any intent to counsel. Judge Okafor held up her hand. I've reviewed the evidence. I'd like to ask your client some questions directly. Ryan's attorney sat down. Ryan stood up. His hands were shaking. Mr. Mitchell. The judge looked at him over her glasses. Can you explain why you thought your mother needed help managing her finances? She's 72, Your Honor. I was worried about her. Seniors get confused, make mistakes. Has your mother been diagnosed with any cognitive impairment? No, but has she shown any signs of inability to manage her affairs? Missed bills? Poor decisions? Ryan hesitated. Not exactly, but so your concern was based on what exactly? Silence. Mr. Mitchell, you propose taking control of your mother's pension and providing her an allowance of $500 per month. Is that correct? Yes, Your Honor. And what did you believe her pension amount to be? Ryan's jaw tightened. I thought it was around $6,000 or $7,000. Her documented income is $12,000 per month. That means under your proposal, you would have retained $11,500 monthly while providing her with 4% of her own money. The judge let that hang in the air. That's $138,000 annually that you would have controlled. I wasn't trying to steal from her. Then what would you call it? No answer. Can you explain the attempt to have your mother psychologically evaluated? We were concerned about her mental state. The paranoia, the accusations, the paranoia being her accurate assessment that you were attempting to gain control of her finances. Ryan's face went red. That's not fair. Fair? The judge leaned forward. Mr. Mitchell, I've been on this bench for 17 years. I've seen every type of elder abuse there is. Financial exploitation by family members is the most common and the most insidious. Adult children convincing their parents they need help, taking control of assets, isolating them from support systems. She held up the folder of evidence. What I see here is textbook. The increased visits, the probing questions about finances, the power of attorney attempt, the threats when she refused, the emotional manipulation using her grandchildren, and finally, the attempt to have her declared incompetent when nothing else worked. Your Honor, I'm not finished. Her voice was cold now. What about the grandchildren, Mr. Mitchell? Your wife threatened to deny your mother access to her grandchildren if she didn't comply. Is that correct? Ryan looked at Ashley. Ashley stared straight ahead. She was upset. She didn't mean. The recording suggests she meant exactly what she said. The judge set down the folder. Mr. Mitchell, do you have anything else to say? Ryan looked at me. For the first time since we'd sat down, he actually looked at me. And I saw it, the calculation, the desperation, the realization that he'd lost. What about our children? His voice cracked. She's their grandmother. They need her in their lives. Judge Okafor's response was ice. You should have thought about that before you attempted to defraud her. She turned to address the courtroom. Based on the evidence presented, I'm granting the restraining order. No contact for 2 years. That means no calls, no texts, no emails, no third-party communication, no showing up at Mrs. Mitchell's residence. Violation will result in immediate arrest. She looked at Ryan and Ashley. I strongly suggest you use this time to reflect on your choices. What you attempted here is reprehensible. Mrs. Mitchell is clearly competent, clearly capable, and clearly being targeted by her own family. That ends today. Bang. Gavel down. Next case. Walking out of that courthouse, I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Safe. Actually, safe. A judge had looked at the evidence and said, publicly, officially, on the record, I was right. They were wrong. Barbara hugged me in the hallway. It's over. Rebecca was more cautious. Keep your guard up. Their desperate house foreclosure is still pending. Desperate people don't always respect court orders. 3 days later, I found out exactly how right she was. Thursday morning. I was making coffee, planning a quiet day in the garden. My phone rang. Unknown number. Mrs. Mitchell? This is Thomas Chen from Bank of America's fraud department. My stomach dropped. What's wrong? We flagged a suspicious transaction on your account yesterday. A wire transfer request for $50,000 to an external account. We blocked it pending verification. $50,000. I didn't authorize any wire transfer. That's what we suspected. The request came in by phone. Someone claiming to be you, requesting an urgent transfer for home repairs. What account was the transfer going to? A pause. Papers shuffling. An account at Chase Bank. In the names of Ryan Mitchell and Ashley Mitchell. The phone almost slipped from my hand. Mrs. Mitchell? Are you there? I'm here. My voice sounded far away. How did they have access? The caller had your full social security number, account number, and answered the security questions correctly. Mother's maiden name, first car, that sort of thing. Information my son knew. Information I'd probably given him years ago without thinking twice. What would have happened if you hadn't caught it? The money would have been transferred. Recovery is possible, but difficult. I sat down at my kitchen table. The same table where Ryan had slid that folder across to me 6 months ago. The same table where this whole nightmare started. They'd actually tried to steal from me. Not theoretically. Not through manipulation. Direct theft. Wire fraud. While a restraining order was in place. I need to file a report, I said. And I need to change my account numbers immediately. An hour later, I was in the bank manager's office, staring at the transaction details on her screen. The timestamp. The phone number used to make the call a burner. Probably. The receiving account opened just a week ago. Rebecca met me there. Her face was grim. That's wire fraud. That's a felony. Combined with the identity theft and the restraining order violation, Patricia, this changes everything. What do you mean? I mean, we're not talking civil court anymore. This is criminal. I'm contacting the district attorney today. Derek and Jessica are going to be arrested. Arrested, my son, in handcuffs, criminal record, everything that comes with that. You know what's strange? I'd imagined this moment, fantasized about it, even during the worst nights. Justice, consequences, the satisfaction of watching them face what they'd done. But sitting in that bank manager's office, staring at the evidence of my son's crime, I didn't feel satisfied. I felt hollow. The baby I'd nursed through fevers. The boy whose hand I'd held on his first day of school. The young man I'd watched graduate, get married, become a father, about to be arrested because he tried to steal $50,000 from his own mother. Patricia? Rebecca was watching me. Are you okay? No. I took a breath. But I'm ready. Do what needs to be done. The next week was a blur of meetings and phone calls. Detective Sarah Morrison from the Portland Police Financial Crimes Unit. Sharp woman, no nonsense. She went through everything with me. The restraining order, the documented abuse, the wire fraud attempt. The timing is significant, she said. They attempted this 3 days after the restraining order was granted. That shows consciousness of guilt. They knew what they were doing was wrong and did it anyway. Will they go to jail? Hard to say. First offense, they might get probation. But they'll have felony convictions, criminal records that follow them forever. I thought about Sophie and Ethan. Growing up with convicted parents, explaining to friends why Daddy went to court, the stigma, the shame. But then I thought about what would have happened if the bank hadn't caught that transfer. $50,000. Gone. And they wouldn't have stopped there. They'd have come back for more and more until there was nothing left. They wouldn't have stopped, I said. Would they? People like this never do. You made the right call. Tuesday morning. I was in my garden trying to find some peace among the roses when my phone rang. Detective Morrison. It's done, she said. Ryan Mitchell and Ashley Mitchell were arrested this morning. charged with attempted wire fraud, identity theft, and violation of a restraining order. I sat down on my garden bench. The roses swayed in the breeze. A bird sang somewhere nearby. Normal sounds on a normal morning. What happens now? Bail hearing tomorrow. The DA will likely offer a plea deal. First offense, they'll probably take it. But either way, they're looking at felony convictions, probation, possibly jail time, and they'll have to pay restitution, though she paused. Between us, they don't have much to pay with. Their house? 3 months behind on the mortgage. Foreclosure proceedings already started. So that was it. The house they'd been so desperate to save, the whole reason they tried to steal from me, they were going to lose it anyway. Mrs. Mitchell? One more thing. Yes? The news is going to pick this up. Elder abuse cases always do. You might want to prepare yourself. I thanked her and hung up. For a long time, I just sat there, watching the roses, listening to the birds, trying to process what had just happened. My son was in jail. My daughter-in-law was in jail. They'd been arrested for trying to steal from me. And somewhere across town, Sophie and Ethan were probably confused and scared, wondering why the police had come to their house this morning. The grief hit me then. Not for Ryan, he'd made his choices, but for those kids, my grandchildren, the innocent casualties of their parents' greed. I called Barbara. It's done, I said. They're arrested. Silence. Then, how do you feel? I don't know. Empty? Maybe? Sad? That's normal, Maggie. You did the right thing. It doesn't have to feel good. She was right. It didn't feel good. It felt necessary. There's a difference. The news spread fast. Carol called that afternoon, shocked but supportive. Susan stopped by with coffee and stayed for 2 hours. Beth texted from her sister's place in California, saw the news. I'm so sorry. I'm so proud of you. The universal reaction, disbelief that it had come to this, then fierce protective pride. You protected yourself, Carol said. And you sent a message. Elder abuse has consequences. That night, I sat alone in my kitchen. The house was quiet, the security system armed, the doors locked. My phone buzzed. A news alert. Local station. Portland man and woman arrested for elder fraud. I didn't read the article. I didn't need to. For 6 months, I'd been fighting, documenting, building a case, playing defense while they escalated and manipulated and threatened. And now it was over. Or almost over. Because here's the thing about consequences. They don't stop at the arrest. There's the trial, the conviction, the sentencing, the aftermath, and I had one more move to make. The next morning, I called Rebecca. I want to set up trust funds for my grandchildren, I said. Sophie and Ethan, $25,000 each. Money their parents can never touch. Available when they turn 18 for education. Silence on the line. Patricia, are you sure? After everything, those kids didn't do anything wrong. They're victims in this too. And someday, when they're old enough to understand what happened, I want them to know. I never stopped loving them, even when their parents tried to use them as weapons. That's remarkably generous. Or remarkably sad. I looked out my kitchen window at the garden, at the roses Robert had planted, at the life I'd built and almost lost. Either way, it's the right thing to do. The arraignment was scheduled for Friday. Rebecca would be there. I wouldn't. I couldn't face them. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But I'd be watching from a distance, waiting for justice to finish what I'd started. Because here's what I'd learned over 6 months of hell. Family isn't an excuse for theft. Love isn't a weapon. And 72 years old doesn't mean helpless. Ryan and Ashley were about to find out exactly what that costs. The phone rang. Rebecca, Patricia, the DA just called. They're offering a plea deal. Already? Wire fraud with identity theft and restraining order violation. They're looking at serious time if they go to trial. The DA is willing to reduce charges in exchange for guilty pleas. What does that mean for them? 3 years probation, 200 hours community service each, full restitution, and a 5-year no contact order, no contact with you whatsoever. 5 years, half a decade, without having to look over my shoulder. What about jail time? Suspended sentence. But if they violate probation, if they miss a single community service hour, if they come within 500 feet of you, they go straight to county lockup. I thought about it. The trial would be public, messy. My whole life dragged through court. Sophie and Ethan's parents on the news. Or a guilty plea, admission of wrongdoing, consequences that would follow them forever, and peace. What do you recommend? Take the deal. You've won, Patricia. Completely. A trial won't give you anything you don't already have. I closed my eyes. Thought about Ryan as a baby, as a boy, as the stranger he'd become. Take it. Rebecca hung up to make the call. I sat at my kitchen table, that table that had seen everything, and let out a breath I'd been holding for 6 months. It was almost over. But there was one thing I didn't know. One thing nobody knew yet. The foreclosure on Ryan and Ashley's house was going to finalize next month. The marriage that had started all this, the greed, the scheming, the desperation, was already cracking under the pressure. And in 6 months, I'd get a letter from Ryan's attorney. A letter that would change everything. Because sometimes, karma doesn't just catch up with people. It runs them over. The plea deal went through on a Friday. Ryan and Ashley stood in front of Judge Okafor and admitted, on the record, to attempted wire fraud, identity theft, and violation of a restraining order. Guilty. Both of them. Felons now, forever. You ever watch someone you raised become someone you don't recognize? That's what I felt sitting in that courtroom. Not satisfaction, not triumph. Just this hollow ache where my son used to be. 3 years probation, 200 hours of community service each. Full restitution, though they didn't have anything left to give. And a 5-year no-contact order. No calls, no texts, no emails, no third-party contact, nothing. Half a decade of silence. Judge Okafor looked at them one last time before she closed the case. What you attempted against your own mother is unconscionable. You exploited her trust, threatened her autonomy, and when that didn't work, you tried to steal from her directly. The court hopes you use your probation to reflect on how you got here. Ryan stared at the floor. Ashley stared straight ahead, jaw tight, eyes empty. Neither of them looked at me. Rebecca drove me home afterward. Neither of us said much. What was there to say? You won, she finally said, pulling into my driveway. Completely. They can't touch you now. I know. How do you feel? I looked at my house, at the security cameras over the doors, at the garden Robert had planted, the roses I'd tended through the worst 6 months of my life. I feel old, I said. And tired. And free. She nodded like she understood. The first month after the conviction was strange. Quiet. No threatening texts. No cars in my driveway. No voicemails from coached grandchildren. Just silence. I didn't know what to do with myself at first. I'd spent so long in crisis mode documenting, strategizing, fighting that peace felt foreign. Like wearing someone else's clothes. Barbara came up from Sacramento for a week. We sat in my garden, drank wine, talked about nothing important. It was exactly what I needed. You're going to be okay, she said. Better than okay. I know. And for the first time in months, I actually believed it. The foreclosure happened 4 weeks after the conviction. I heard about it through Carol, who'd heard it from Susan, who'd heard it from someone at her church. Ryan and Ashley's house, the one they'd been so desperate to save, sold at auction. Bank took everything. They moved into a small apartment across town. 2 bedrooms, probably. Enough for the kids, not enough for the life Ashley had wanted. I tried to feel something about that. Satisfaction, maybe, or guilt. But there was nothing. Just a distant acknowledgement that choices have consequences. Ryan lost his real estate license the same week. Automatic when you have a fraud conviction in Oregon. 17 years in the business, connections all over Portland, and now he couldn't sell a parking space. Through the grapevine, I heard he was working at a car rental place near the airport. Counter service, minimum wage plus tips, the kind of job he would have looked down on a year ago. Ashley went back to retail, some department store at the mall. 2 jobs. From what I heard, mornings at the store, evenings at a restaurant, trying to keep the lights on. The marriage that had started all this, it was cracking. Barbara kept me updated when she could. Friends of friends, that kind of thing. Nothing direct, the no-contact order worked both ways. They're fighting constantly, she told me over the phone, blaming each other. Ashley says it was all Ryan's idea. Ryan says Ashley pushed him into it. They both made choices. Yeah, well, choices have consequences. 6 months after the conviction, a letter arrived, certified mail. Return address I didn't recognize. I opened it at my kitchen table. Same table. Always that table. It was from an attorney, not Ryan's criminal lawyer. Someone new. A family law specialist? Dear Mrs. Mitchell, it began. I am writing on behalf of Ryan Mitchell to inform you of the dissolution of his marriage to Ashley Mitchell. Dissolution. Fancy word for divorce. I read the rest. Irreconcilable differences. Mutual filing. Custody arrangements pending. They destroyed their marriage trying to steal from me. The stress of the investigation, the criminal charges, the financial ruin, the public humiliation, all of it gone. The family they'd built, the future they'd planned, everything, because they got greedy. I set the letter down, poured myself a glass of wine, sat in my kitchen as the sun went down. Did I feel triumphant? No. Did I feel vindicated? Maybe a little. Mostly I just felt sad for what could have been, for the family we might have had if my son had made different choices. But here's the thing about grief. It doesn't last forever. Not if you don't let it. The months passed. I started sleeping through the night again. My appetite came back. The knot in my stomach that had been there since Thanksgiving finally started to loosen. I rejoined my book club, went back to yoga on Tuesdays, started really working in my garden again, not just stress weeding, but actually planning, planting, creating something beautiful. Carol noticed the change first. You look good, she said after our monthly meeting. Really good. I feel good. You survived. More than survived. You won. I did what I had to do. She hugged me. Most people don't. Most people just give in. I thought about her sister, the one who'd been too ashamed to fight back, who died, broke, and bitter because she couldn't face what her daughter had done. That wasn't going to be me. 1 year after the conviction, I looked around my life and barely recognized it. My house was mine, really mine. I'd repainted it in colors. I loved sage green in the living room, warm yellow in the kitchen. Got rid of the old furniture that Robert and I had picked out together. Not because I wanted to forget him, but because I wanted to make room for whoever I was becoming. The security system was still there. Probably always would be. But I barely checked the cameras anymore. Barbara came up twice a month now. We'd do brunch, or shopping, or just sit on my deck and watch the clouds roll over Mount Hood. You're thriving, she said on one of those visits. I'm serious. You look 10 years younger. I laughed. I feel 10 years younger, 73 and finally free. That's what happens when you cut out the cancer. Harsh, but true. I'd started a support group for seniors dealing with financial abuse. Met at the community center on Thursday evenings, 8 or 10 of us, depending on the week. All with stories like mine, children, grandchildren, spouses who'd tried to take what wasn't theirs. Some were still fighting. Some had already lost. All of them needed to know they weren't alone. You saved yourself, I told them. Now help save each other. I also started volunteering at a legal aid clinic downtown, helping other seniors navigate the system I'd just survived, how to document abuse, how to find an attorney, how to protect your assets before someone takes them. The woman who ran the clinic told me I was making a difference. You understand what they're going through, she said. That matters more than any legal advice. Maybe. Or maybe I just needed something useful to do with all this anger. And then there was Tom. Tom from yoga. Widower, 3 years now. Retired engineer. Kind eyes, good laugh. Terrible at downward dog. He asked me to coffee after class one day. I almost said no automatic response after everything. But something made me say yes. Coffee turned into dinner. Dinner turned into walks along the waterfront. Walks turned into whatever this was becoming. You're easy to talk to, he told me one evening, watching the sunset from my deck. I'm 73, with a felonious son and trust issues. He laughed. Nobody's perfect. It wasn't love. Not yet. Maybe not ever. I was old enough to know that not everything needs a label. But it was companionship, connection, someone to share dinner with who didn't want anything from me except my company. After Robert, I thought I was done with all that. Turns out, life has other plans. The kids, Sophie and Ethan, I think about them every day. After the conviction, I'd gone through with the trust funds, $25,000 each, held by the state until they turn 18. Education only. Untouchable by their parents. Ryan and Ashley don't know about it. Won't know until the kids are old enough to access it themselves. Someday, when Sophie's 18 and applying to college, she'll get a letter explaining where the money came from. Same for Ethan, 2 years later. Maybe they'll understand by then. Maybe they won't. Rebecca asked me once if I was going to pursue grandparent visitation rights. I could, probably. Strong case, given the circumstances. But forced visitation felt wrong. Ryan and Ashley would poison those kids against me anyway, fill their heads with stories about crazy grandma who sent daddy to jail. Making Sophie and Ethan sit through supervised visits with someone they'd been taught to hate. That wouldn't help anyone. Not now, I told Rebecca. Maybe when they're older, maybe they'll reach out on their own. That's remarkably mature. Or remarkably sad. I shrugged. Either way, it's the right thing. The door stays open. It always will. I heard through the grapevine that the divorce was brutal. Mutual blame Ashley saying Ryan was weak. Ryan saying Ashley was greedy. Custody battle drained whatever money they had left. Ashley moved back to Eugene, where her parents lived. 2 jobs, a shared apartment, starting over at 41. Ryan stayed in Portland. Studio apartment now, not even room for the kids when he had them. Working at that car rental place, living on tips and whatever was left after child support. Some people might call that karma. I call it math. You make choices, you face consequences. Nothing supernatural about it. The thing nobody tells you about the aftermath of something like this, it doesn't end clean. I still think about Ryan sometimes. Not the man who tried to steal from me, the boy. The one who used to crawl into my bed during thunderstorms. The one who made me a Mother's Day card every year until he was 12. Each one more elaborate than the last. Where did that boy go? How did he become this stranger? I don't have answers. Maybe I never will. But I've learned to live with the questions. To hold the grief and the anger and the love all at once. Because that's what being human means. Nothing's simple. Nothing's clean. It's been a year now since the conviction. A year and a half since Thanksgiving. Since I stood at my kitchen sink and heard my son plotting to steal my life. I'm 73. I have a garden that's blooming, friends who show up when I need them, a sister who loves me, a support group full of survivors, a man who makes me laugh. And I sleep through the night now. Every night. No security cameras to check, no voicemails to dread, no son showing up at my door with a folder full of papers and a practiced smile. You want to know what I learned from all this? Family isn't blood. Family is who shows up. Who protects you. Who tells you the truth even when it hurts. And love isn't a weapon. It's not something you use to manipulate people into giving you what you want. Ryan and Ashley tried to turn my love for my grandchildren against me. They coached a 6-year-old to beg me over voicemail. They brought those kids to my house as human shields, and they lost. Everything. Carol told me something at book club last month. We were talking about the whole mess. She knows everything now, and she said, "You didn't just win your case, Patricia. You won your life back." She's right. That's exactly what happened. They tried to take everything from me. My money, my freedom, my dignity, my sanity. And I'm still here, stronger than before, living my life on my terms. That's victory. Not revenge, victory. There's a difference. So here I am, sitting in my garden, watching the roses Robert planted bloom for another year, 73 years old and freer than I've ever been. My son's a felon. My daughter-in-law's working retail. Their marriage is ashes. Their house is gone. Their futures are whatever they can scrape together from the wreckage. And me? I've got my pension, my house, my friends, my garden, a support group full of people I'm helping survive what I survived. Maybe I'm petty. But you know what? I earned it. Some people ask if I'd do anything differently. If I could go back to that Thanksgiving, hearing them whisper in my hallway, would I confront them right there? Call them out? Try to fix it before it got this far? No. Because here's what I know now. You can't fix people who don't want to be fixed. You can't save someone from their own greed. All you can do is protect yourself. And I did. So that's my story, start to finish. The pension scheme, the recordings, the lawyers, the courtroom, the wire fraud, the arrests, the conviction, the aftermath. Some people might think I went too far. Pressing charges against my own son, sending him to court, watching him plead guilty to a felony. I think I didn't go far enough. I should have seen it coming years ago. Should have trusted my instincts when Ashley first showed up with those cold eyes and expensive taste. But you live, you learn, and you don't make the same mistake twice. Ryan and Ashley thought they were dealing with a confused old woman. Someone they could manipulate and control. Someone who'd sign away her life to keep the peace. They were wrong. And that's the lesson, isn't it? Age doesn't mean weakness. Trust doesn't mean stupidity. Love doesn't mean letting people steal from you. I'm 73 years old. I've survived a dead husband, a predatory son, and 6 months of hell, and I'm still standing. If that story meant something to you, if you've got someone in your life trying to take what's yours, or you know somebody who needs to hear this, hit subscribe. I've got more stories like this, because karma doesn't always come fast. But when it does, it comes with receipts,